Welcome back to the Law&Crime Trial Network. I'm Allison Hall. We do have breaking news this afternoon. A verdict has been reached in the Sarah Lawrence sex cult case here in New York City. The 62-year-old defendant, Lawrence Ray, is found guilty on a 15-count indictment of federal crimes related to the manipulation and extortion of a group of his daughter's Sarah Lawrence college friends after living in her on-campus housing back in 2010. Just a few of his original 17 charges include racketeering, extortion, sex trafficking, forced labor, and money laundering. 2 counts were dropped by the end of the trial for technical reasons. He faces life in prison for his alleged crimes. Law&Crime's very own Adam Klasfeld has spent the duration of this federal trial inside the courtroom. He joins us now with all of the details. Adam, how are you doing? What's the scene like down there?
Well, it is the coda of a long and harrowing trial. In the back of the courtroom, 3 of Ray's victims were spotted, the Rosario siblings, Felicia Rosario, Santos Rosario, and Yalitza Rosario, who were spotted holding hands in the back of the courtroom as everyone was awaiting the verdict. And the verdict came out. 15 counts charged against him that the jury was there to consider, 15 counts of conviction. And you started rattling some of them off, Allison. Racketeering, sex trafficking, extortion, forced labor, money laundering, and other financial crimes. It was a resounding verdict, and it showed that the jury only needed a few hours to consider the overwhelming evidence against Ray, much of it of his own making. As I have said before on the program, prosecutors discovered thousands of files that Ray personally stored of the confessions that he forced out of his young victims. They would confess to out there infractions such as poisoning him or damaging his property or colluding with his enemies, all to extract payments ranging from the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even to the millions of dollars, to his sex trafficking victim, Claudia Drury, who testified that she worked 7 days a week, seeing up to 5 men a day, working on her birthdays, holidays, in order to keep the money flowing to Ray, who then had that money funneled through his followers into a GoDaddy account for internet domains. He never sold the domains. A jury quickly found that was money laundering. And so the prosecutors had a validation that they got it exactly right in this mammoth indictment, where they described Ray as a crime boss in summations. The racketeering charge, of course, typically used to clamp down on organized crime. And that's what prosecutors say he acted on in his daughter's dorm room in Sarah Lawrence College.
Wow. And what was the defendant's reaction when this verdict came down?
He didn't really betray much of a reaction, and I have to say, it really wasn't much of a surprise. The verdict coming that quickly in a case with such overwhelming evidence, I don't think anyone expected when a verdict came in that it was going to be 15 counts of acquittal. It was overwhelming evidence, and it quickly was pronounced after the foreperson handed the verdict. It was recited aloud after Judge Lyman had him face the jury. Betrayed no emotion as those counts of conviction were rattled off. Now it goes to the sentencing, which will be in September. He faces up to life imprisonment for the avalanche of charges that have been against him. But even one of those charges, the sex trafficking charge, has a maximum sentence of life. And that's not counting all of the racketeering, money laundering, tax evasion, forced labor, extortion. So he's facing a truly heavy sentence.
Absolutely, I'm sure he is. Adam, you mentioned that a couple of the victims were in the courtroom. Did you see their reaction when that verdict was announced? I imagine it was quite a moment of relief for them.
We're trying to get their reaction right now, but but it wasn't easily and quickly detectable. We're trying to, of course, follow up with them and hear more about their stories, all of them, which they shared on the witness stand. Just to reiterate, Felicia Rosario, Santos Rosario, and Yalitza Rosario, along with their mother, Maritza Rosario, all testified against Ray. And prosecutors say all of them became so despondent during that time of their association that they tried to take their own lives. So it must be a huge relief to the Rosario family that the verdict came down so quickly in the way that it did.
Absolutely. And these college students just went through so much. This was back in 2010. This was a long time coming for these victims to seek justice here. Adam, you were in the courtroom nearly every day, if not every day. What was the standout moment that you really picked up on in this case?
Well, the types of torture that was inflicted on these kids just kept getting worse. It was symbolized by the prosecution. They began their opening statements and their closing arguments with the same image. A night on October 15th, 2018, which they described as the long night of torture, where Ray allegedly, and now has been found by a jury, to have tried to suffocate his victim with a plastic bag, choked her with a leash, doused her with water next to an air conditioner for several hours because she testified, told one of her clients that Ray was trying to blackmail them on a website in her name. So after that, that was a just harrowing testimony. He told her, according to her testimony, that he was going to waterboard her. He told her that, according to her testimony, that he was going to kill her. And the jury believed her account, and now he stands convicted of sex trafficking. But really, some of the standout moments are just all of those horrendous videos. There was one video, and I'm sure Law&Crime viewers have seen all of these by now, of one of the victims, Dan Levin, who actually wrote a memoir about what Larry Ray called the Larry Ray family, where Larry Ray used a set of pliers to pull on his tongue and held a hammer under him and threatened him to do worse if he got out of line. There were several videos like that, too many to describe, too many to count. It's truly a very harrowing case.
Harrowing indeed, and I know from being in those courtrooms myself over the years, it is hard to sit there and watch and listen to those victims come forward with their story and to watch those various videos. I imagine that the jury was really impacted by seeing some of those videos in real time in that courtroom. Adam, were you at all surprised that the jury came back with a verdict so quickly, and just how long was it?
It was only a matter of hours. Just to put into perspective, they began their deliberations at 9:30. And I wasn't surprised that it came back so quickly just because the evidence was so overwhelming. And in this regard, Ray was his worst enemy. As a matter of fact, his own defense was that he believed the elaborate plots that he cooked up, the idea that the students were poisoning him, that in his mind, these videos that in many ways resemble hostage videos were something that he found would exonerate him. Everyone in the outside world looking at it can see this as a catalog of his abuse of his victims. And that is, the jury quickly rejected the idea that he believed it was true. He believed he was entitled to take money from Claudia Drury that she had gotten from her sex work that was forced onto her. they quickly rejected it, and very few folks, I think, who've been watching the trial in depth were truly surprised by that.
Right, that makes total sense. Well, Adam, thank you so much for racing out of that courtroom and joining us to bring us this news and for all of your reporting on this hugely important case. We certainly appreciate it here at Law and Crime.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTubeTV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTubeTV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTubeTV. We put you in the jury box.